Well, to explain the new rules and reasoning around funerals, Health Minister David Clark joins us now. Good evening, Minister. How did you get it so wrong to start off with?
Good evening, Lisa. I'm personally just really pleased that we've found a solution that allows people who've lost loved ones to grieve in a way that we know will keep people safe. We've always been concerned at the outset that we wanted to manage this risk. We've seen overseas where people at funerals have become infected, and we've had double jeopardy where there's been further tragedy. In this case, the sector itself has stepped up and said they can manage the situation adequately with the appropriate public health measures, and them stepping forward has provided a way through for us.
So do you acknowledge it was unkind and inhumane, the original proposal?
Look, right through the lockup, this has been an issue that's been raised with me, and I know with other ministers. The challenges around grieving and the grieving process under level 4 was extraordinary. Of course, it's a global pandemic, an unprecedented situation, and New Zealanders have been making sacrifices across the board. As we've moved toward level 2, we've wanted to open some things up, but of course we don't want to open up risk on every front. We have found a way through for funerals, but we're also going to be cautious because we want to make sure that we've locked in the gains that have accumulated through New Zealanders' sacrifices.
Okay, let's clarify some of the specifics. Will funeral directors need to get a dispensation every time they hold a funeral with 50 people?
Funeral directors will essentially submit a form which covers off the detail of how they will manage the risk that is presented in gatherings, the kind of public health measures that they will have in place, how they'll provide contact tracing information, physical distancing measures, hand hygiene and the like, and give assurances around suitable sanitation of the facilities between gatherings.
So one application, regardless of how many funerals they're hosting with that number?
No, they will submit for each gathering that they have a form. Of course, it'll be venue specific because each venue will have different challenges with spacing requirements, but they will submit a declaration for each funeral that they expect to conduct.
So will funerals have to be seated with those numbers?
With those numbers, I expect that practically they will be using seating arrangements to ensure physical distancing, but ultimately it'll be up to the funeral directors themselves who will carry the responsibility and make the declarations that are relevant to the public health measures.
Can you hold a funeral over several days and have 50 people on day 1, 50 different people on day 2, day 3, so on and so on?
Well, the rules around tangi are being carefully worked through. Iwi leaders have fed into that process, and basically we know that marae groups are very concerned to make sure that their people are safe. So there's a really good working arrangement there. People will be brought onto the marae in small groups, if, for example, visiting a body. That will take place in a very careful way, and public health units stand available to provide advice. But again, a funeral director is usually involved in those situations who will make the appropriate declaration.
Yeah, I'm still not clear on that. So can you have 50 people, 50 different people coming each day?
Look, I think the thing will be to make sure that we have no large groups, and so that will be managed carefully according to tikanga.
So is that a yes? You can have 50 different people each day?
That will depend very much on the circumstances and the spaces where people are meeting.
So whose job is it to turn away the 51st mourner? Will that be the funeral director or the family? Who's supposed to do that?
The funeral directors will be providing that assurance, and it will be a requirement on them. They're a professional organisation. The conversations I've had with them, in particular the ones this morning, I got real assurance from them that they are able to manage these risks. They've had processes in place through level 3 and level 4 for managing what is an extraordinary situation, and so the responsibility sits with them. They make the declaration, and they are the ones who have to make sure that the public health measures are met.
So what, potentially security guards who turn people away once we're at capacity?
It'll be up to the funeral directors how they manage that. But look, these are very, very capable people who deal with grief all the time. I myself am a funeral celebrant and have conducted funerals over many, many years. I have great faith in the way funeral directors work and in their ability to work with grieving families. The grieving families themselves don't want anyone to put themselves at risk either. No one wants further tragedy in these situations. So I am confident we've found a way forward that will keep people safe but also allow people to grieve.
So why do you trust them today but you didn't trust them yesterday?
We have come up with a solution together that will work for people who've lost loved ones, and that's been the funeral directors themselves coming forward with a.
But they've been coming
way
forward
in
for
which this
some
can be
time,
made to
Minister.
work.
It's not just yesterday they popped out of the woodwork and said that this was unfair. They have been campaigning, agitating around this for some time, and you've made an abrupt U-turn in the last few hours. So I'm wondering how the situation is different today than it was yesterday. Was it just that this had the potential to sway public opinion against the government?
No, look, I think that's to misunderstand the situation. They have been incredibly constructive here, and they've come up with the solution that's going to work. So we've listened to their concerns, and we've also seen that they've actually come up with a very workable solution. So that's the thing that has made the difference.
Okay, so no refreshments after the wake. You can't gather and have a sandwich and a cup of tea, but from tomorrow 100 people can go to a restaurant. Why the inconsistency?
Well, the distinction we've made with groups of 10 across lots of different situations is that they may not mingle with other people. It's the mixing and mingling that the Director General of Health draws my attention to when he's giving the advice on these matters. The big concern is where groups mingle. 10 is a number that can be easily, that we can have confidence can be managed if there is to be some transmission of a virus that we weren't expecting, whereas as soon as that number increases, the risks go up in an exponential fashion. So with restaurants, for example, there'll be an expectation that groups do not mix, that 10 people is the size of the group that is attending the restaurant, and that people gather in groups of 10, and that is a different situation.
We're out of time, so can I get a quick answer on this one? Are you going to make any exceptions for churches to have prayer services?
Look, we've been really clear that number of 10 is there for the foreseeable future. We will examine, and we all hope that we will be able to loosen these restrictions further as we get evidence that we have greater confidence that community transmission is not in New Zealand, and that we see things continue to improve and that COVID-19 continues to be managed.
Thanks for joining us this evening. That is the Health Minister, David Clark.